Rain lashed the cracked pavement of Millersville like it was trying to drown the whole town. Beneath the rusted awning of a forgotten bus stop, Malik sat hunched over, soaked through, barefoot. The wind pressed his soaked hoodie to his thin frame, and his teeth chattered, but he didn't move. Clutched tightly in his hands was a brown envelope, the corners soft and curling from the rain. Slung over his shoulder by frayed laces hung a pair of sneakers, scuffed, faded but once prized. They were the last good thing he had, the last thing worth anything. Asterisk the town, always quiet, now felt gutted. Sirens had wailed not long ago, drawing a crowd to the collapsed scaffolding behind the old warehouse where the construction crews worked for day pay and no contracts. Malik had seen it happen, Jaden's dad yelling, scrambling, with snapping like bones, and then the silence that followed. Jaden had been there too, trying to help his father, and now he was being rushed to the hospital with a gash across. His forehead too pale and too still. The ambulance left them in a blur of red and white. Asterisk, Malik didn't wait for someone to explain. He had heard Jaden's mother pleading at the emergency room counter, voice cracking over the words, no insurance, and $50 deposit. They wouldn't take him without it. Malik had watched her dig through her purse with shaking hands, only to come up empty. And then he turned and ran. Asterisk now. Sitting there barefoot, he stared at the envelope one last time. Inside were the pawn shop's crumpled bills, just enough. It hadn't even taken long. The man behind the bulletproof glass at Tommy's pawn barely looked at the sneakers before tossing them into a bin and sliding the cash across. Malik hadn't even asked for more. He just took it and ran back through the rain, lungs burning, feet bleeding from where broken glass had caught him on the way. The pain didn't matter. Nothing did. Asterisk when he reached the hospital again. Jaden's mother was still standing at the counter, her shoulders trembling. Without a word, Malik pressed the envelope into her hands. She looked up, startled, eyes already rimmed red, but Malik just shook his head and stepped back. He said nothing, offered no explanation, just turned and walked away before she could ask. Asterisk that night. Jaden was admitted. He survived. They stitched him up, kept him overnight, said he'd be okay. He never knew about the shoes. He never knew that while he rested under sterile lights, his best friend walked home barefoot in the dark, rain still coming down in waves. Malik didn't need thanks. He only needed Jaden to live. Asterisk and Jaden did, never knowing who had paid. The price, asterisk, Malik was 28 now, but most days he felt twice that. His mornings started before sunrise, bussing tables at a diner that smelled like burnt coffee and bleach. By evening, he was stocking shelves at a warehouse superstore, moving fast to keep his hours and not fall behind on rent. Home was a lumpy couch in a one-bedroom apartment shared with two other men who worked night shifts and barely spoke. The kitchen sink leaked. The heat only worked when it didn't matter. But Malik didn't complain. He couldn't afford to, not with everything he was still trying to build. Asterisk, his shoes, the ones he wore every day, were from a clearance rack 2 years ago. The soles had started to split, but he patched them with duct tape and kept walking. The only indulgence in his life came at night, when he hunched over old napkins, envelopes, and scraps of receipt paper, sketching shoe designs under a flickering lamp. They weren't just sneakers. They were dreams, stitched in graphite and hope, custom footwear for kids like him, kids who grew up with nothing, who got made fun of at school, who never got to feel proud of what they wore. That was Malik's vision. A small business, community-based, dignity in every pair. but vision. Didn't pay for permits or inventory. And every bank he walked into, clean-shaven and nervous, left him feeling smaller. No credit history, no collateral, no family to co-sign. Just sorry and a hard smile. Asterisk his mother, the only person who had ever believed in his designs, had died 3 years ago. Diabetes. It could have been managed, treated, but they couldn't afford the appointments, couldn't afford the meds. Malik had worked extra shifts, tried to pick up side gigs, but it hadn't been enough. She'd passed quietly one night, and he hadn't even been there. He was working late at the diner when the nurse called. The guilt sat like concrete in his chest, but he carried it silently, the way he carried everything. Asterisk meanwhile, Jaden was on magazine covers. Literally, Malik had seen him on the front of Forbes' Next 100, grinning in a tailored suit, quoted, about revitalizing urban spaces through sustainable innovation. His name came up now and then on LinkedIn updates, real estate blogs, glowing interviews on late-night podcasts. Malik would pause sometimes, staring at the screen, trying to recognize the boy he used to know. The kid who used to race him down the block, who split every peanut butter sandwich in half, who once cried when they watched The Lion King. After Jaden's father died and his family moved out of Millersville, they drifted. There were a few texts, a couple missed calls, then nothing. Asterisk, it didn't seem malicious, just life, but it stung anyway. Asterisk, Jaden had gone on to a private high school, then a scholarship, then Harvard, MBA, internships. He played the game and won. The kind of man people held doors open for. The kind who never had to choose between gas money and groceries. Malik didn't hate him for it, not really. But sometimes, in the quiet of the night, when his hands were cramped from drawing and his phone buzzed with overdue notices, he wondered if Jaden remembered the hospital, the shoes, that Malik had given up the only thing he owned to make sure. His friend didn't die on a gurney while nurses looked the other way. Asterisk, he never told anyone, never asked for recognition. That wasn't why he did it. But sometimes, watching Jaden smile through polished interviews about hard work and perseverance, Malik couldn't help but wonder if maybe the foundation of that high-rise life had started with something small and silent, something like sacrifice. Asterisk still, Malik pressed on. Every night, he sharpened his pencils and kept sketching. Designs piled up in a shoebox under the couch, each one more intricate than the last. One day, he told himself, one grant, one investor, one shot. Not to get rich, just to build something that mattered. For the kids, for his mother, for himself. Asterisk, and maybe, somewhere in the back of his mind, for the friend who had long forgotten the barefoot boy in the rain. Asterisk, the room buzzed with nervous energy, folding chairs creaking beneath eager dreamers as the community startup event hit its stride. Under fluorescent lights, young entrepreneurs pitched everything from eco-soaps to drone delivery apps, each hoping to snag a grant or mentorship from the panel of local investors. Malik sat near the back, hands sweaty, heart pounding. He could barely hear the pitches before his over-the-roar in his own head. He clutched his folder like a lifeline. Inside were hand-drawn designs, a mission statement, and a broken-in pair of kids' sneakers he'd crafted himself. He had nothing polished, nothing glossy, but he had purpose. Asterisk, when they called his name, he almost didn't rise. But he did. Shaky legs, thrift store button-up, discount slacks. The mic squeaked as he stepped to the front. For a moment, he just stood there, breath shallow, eyes darting. Then, he started talking, not with Polish or pitch-perfect cadence, but with raw, trembling honesty. I didn't grow up with much, Malik began. I had one pair of shoes. When they broke, I still wore them, because there wasn't another option. I know what it's like to walk to school, hoping no one looks at your feet. I know what it's like to lose a parent because they couldn't afford to stay alive. He held up one of the shoes he made. The stitching was clean. The design, bold. I want to change that. I make sneakers, custom ones, for kids who can't afford to be invisible. The room quieted. A few people nodded. Someone murmured, beautiful. He felt their eyes soften, felt something start to open, and then, just as quickly, it changed. A ripple ran through the crowd as the back doors swung open and in walked a man in a charcoal grey suit, flanked by a petite woman with a tablet in one hand and purpose in her stride. Jaden Malik blinked. For a moment, he thought his mind was playing tricks. But no, it was him. Older now, slicker, beard trimmed, eyes sharper. The last time Malik had seen that face, it had been in the back of an ambulance. Now, it was on every business blog and magazine cover. Jaden took his place at the judges' table, nodded to the organizer, and scanned the stage without recognition. His gaze passed over Malik like a stranger's. The moderator welcomed him with fanfare. We're thrilled to have Mr. Jaden Reed, joining as a surprise judge, partner at Keystone Urban Ventures, recently featured in Forbes' Next 100. Malik's throat closed. He looked down at his shoes, the ones he'd made from donated leather and salvaged soles. The ones he wore because the store-bought ones never lasted long enough. When the mic was offered to the judges for feedback, Jaden leaned forward, clasping his hands. Your story is compelling, he said. His voice was calm, smooth, the voice of someone used to being heard. But a good business pitch needs more than heart. You're selling an idea rooted in emotion, but I don't see the structure. Where's your customer acquisition plan, your distribution model, revenue, projections? He paused. Without that, you're not ready. The crowd applauded, some out of agreement, others just relieved not to be in Malik's place. Malik nodded stiffly, thanked them, and stepped down, heat burning behind his eyes. He barely remembered walking back to his seat. The shoebox felt heavier in his hands, but not everyone had looked away from the judge's table. Jaden's assistant, Donnie, had been watching closely. Her eyes hadn't left Malik's shoes the entire time. She wasn't dazzled by spreadsheets. She'd sat through too many of these to be impressed by jargon. What caught her attention was the craftsmanship, the stitching, the way the shoes didn't just look handmade. They looked made with care, with intention. These weren't prototypes from a business plan. These were something else. She scribbled. Something in her notes. Look into that guy. Malik sat down, shoulders low, heart thudding. Jaden laughed politely at a joke from another judge, oblivious to the man he had once called brother. Malik didn't know what hurt more, being dismissed in front of a crowd, or realizing that the person who'd meant everything to him hadn't even recognized his face. Malik sat alone on the edge of his couch, the dim light from the kitchen casting long shadows across the floor. His sketchpad lay open beside him, half a sneaker design scrawled in pencil, the lines starting to blur from the sweat on his palms. The startup event had left him raw, not just embarrassed, but exposed. To put his dream in front of a crowd, only to have it picked apart by someone he once called family, was a pain he hadn't prepared for, and Jaden had looked right at him and seen nothing. That cut deeper than the critique. Asterisk still. Malik didn't stop. The next night, after both jobs and the long bus ride home, he was back at the table. Rulers, pens, scraps of leather. His fingers moved with practiced patience, pulling form from memory. Every shoe he designed had a story, a face, a struggle stitched into the curve of the sole or the bend of the tongue. This wasn't a hustle. It was survival turned into something beautiful. Asterisk, 2 days later, a message landed in his inbox. Donnie, the assistant, she'd seen something in his work. Not just pity or potential, but real interest. She asked if he'd be open to joining a smaller investor circle, less formal, more hands-on, just a room of people who cared about community. Innovation. She even offered to help him prep. Malik didn't say yes right away. Part of him wanted to run, to avoid the humiliation of standing up again, only to be dismissed. But the other part, the part that had walked barefoot in the rain all those years ago, wouldn't let him quit. He replied, yes, thank you. Asterisk, this time, Malik came prepared. Donnie had helped him tighten the pitch, refine the language. He brought 6 pairs of handmade shoes, displayed them on a folded table covered in a clean sheet. He wore the best clothes he had pressed slacks, a button-up that still held a faint trace of cologne from a bottle he only used on important days. The nerves were still there, but something else had joined them, pride. He stood straighter. Asterisk, the room was smaller, warmer, filled with quieter voices and genuine interest. As Malik spoke, people leaned in. He talked less about pain, more about purpose. He explained his process, the materials, the community he wanted to serve. He let them hold the shoes, turn them over in their hands. These aren't just for comfort, he said. They're for dignity. The room applauded, not just politely, but with real appreciation. Asterisk in the back. Jaden stood against the wall, arms folded, watching. Asterisk after the event, as the room began to empty. Malik packed up his shoes with steady hands. He felt seen, not just pitied, but understood. That feeling lasted exactly 5 minutes. Asterisk hey, came the voice from behind him. Malik turned. Jaden stood there, alone now, his tie loosened, brow furrowed like he was trying to place a memory just out of reach. You were at the other event too, right? Asterisk Malik nodded once. Yeah. Asterisk Jaden studied him for a beat longer. Your work's good. Strong aesthetic. Community angles smart. Might be something there. He sounded casual, but he didn't look away. I've got a team looking to diversify product lines. I could offer you a development deal, limited. Run, some branding support. We'd just need you to sign over partial rights. Standard stuff. Asterisk Malik didn't answer right away. His fingers tensed around the box of shoes. He looked at Jaden, really looked, and the years between them collapsed for a second. The suit, the calm authority, the way he spoke like he'd always been at the top of the stairs. Malik felt it all come rushing back, standing in the rain at 12 years old, barefoot, holding the brown envelope with Jaden's name written in his heart. Watching the moving truck pull away from the Reed house a year later, Jaden waving distractedly, already leaving their old life behind. Asterisk, I'm not signing over my designs, Malik said quietly. Asterisk, Jaden blinked, surprised. It's not personal. That's how these deals work. Asterisk, I know how they work, Malik said. That's why I'm not doing it. Asterisk Jaden shifted. Look, I'm trying to help asterisk. You don't even remember me, Malik cut in. It wasn't bitter, just tired. Asterisk Jaden opened his mouth, closed it. His brow furrowed deeper. Have we met? Asterisk Malik shook his head slowly, a soft laugh escaping before he could stop it. 12 years ago, I gave up the only thing I had to keep you alive. I never asked for anything back. Still don't. But I'm not handing you my future, too. Asterisk Jaden's face stiffened, the polished veneer cracking just slightly. There was something almost vulnerable in his eyes now. Not recognition, not yet, but the first glint of discomfort. A man not used to being told. No. Asterisk Malik picked up his box, nodded once, and walked past him. Asterisk later that night, he sat back at his table, sketching again, not because he had to, but because he couldn't. Stop. Flashbacks flickered in his mind like old film. The night he stood outside Jaden's house after his mother died, too numb to cry, hoping someone would invite him in. The day he watched the Reeds pack up for the suburbs, Jaden laughing with his little brother, windows tinted, not looking back. Asterisk Jaden's world had been built on stepping stones laid by hands he never saw. Malik was one of them. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need an apology. But he would not be forgotten, not this time. The ballroom glowed with soft gold light, crystal chandeliers catching every shimmer of tuxedos and champagne flutes. A jazz quartet played in the corner, and the city's elite glided through the room like it belonged to them, because it did. Jaden stood at the podium, delivering his keynote with polished charm, talking about urban revitalization, inclusive growth, and uplifting the communities that raised us. The crowd nodded, clapped, raised glasses. On the surface, everything was perfect. Asterisk, but near the back. Among servers and distant plus ones, Malik stood still. Guest badge clipped to his lapel thanks to Donnie's quiet defiance. He didn't belong here. Not in the eyes of the crowd, not in the luxury tailored suits or $200 plates of food. But he watched Jaden speak, eyes hard, chest tight. And when Jaden lifted his glass to toast the future, Malik turned and walked out. Asterisk Jaden saw the movement just as the applause began. A familiar figure slipping past the crowd. Something in him flinched. Not recognition, not yet, but a pull. He handed off the mic, murmured something to a donor, and hurried after him, pushing through velvet-curtained halls and marble corridors until he caught up outside on the balcony. Asterisk Malik, he called. The name felt strange in his mouth. Asterisk Malik didn't turn around. The city sprawled before them, cold lights flickering across windows. Jaden's shoes clicked against the stone as he approached, breath shallow from the chase and something deeper in unease he couldn't quite name. Asterisk, you just walked out. Jaden said, what the hell was that? Asterisk Malik finally faced him. His expression was calm, but beneath it was something old and sharp, like glass beneath the skin. You still don't get it, he said. Asterisk Jaden frowned. Get what? Asterisk Malik stepped closer, his voice low but steady. You don't remember, do you? 12 years ago, the night your dad got hurt, the hospital, the deposit. Asterisk Jaden's face tensed, eyes narrowing in confusion, then widening slightly, as the past began to flicker at the edges of his mind. Asterisk, you were unconscious. Your mum was screaming. They wouldn't take him in without money. And I was outside, soaked to the bone, holding a brown envelope, and the only decent thing I owned, the sneakers on my back. Asterisk Jaden staggered back a step, as if hit. His mouth parted, but no words came. Asterisk, I pawned them, Malik continued. So he wouldn't die on that floor. I gave your mum $50, and I never told a soul, not even you, because I didn't want anything. His voice cracked, except maybe to matter. Asterisk silence fell between them, thick and heavy. Jaden stood frozen, the weight of Malik's words crashing in like a tidal wave. The memory broke open, his mother's trembling hands, the envelope. With no name, the nurse waving them through. A blur of panic, grief, and the faceless kindness he'd never bothered to trace. He had told that story before, even used it in interviews. The anonymous miracle, the night everything changed, and it had been Malik all along. His throat tightened. I didn't know, he whispered. Asterisk, double quotes, no, you didn't, Malik said. You walked away with everything, schools, suits, deals, futures. You got to build, you got to forget. He stepped closer, and I walked home with nothing. Wet socks, a life that got smaller while yours kept getting bigger, and you never once looked back. Jaden's face crumbled, not with defensiveness, but with guilt, deep and sudden and terrifying. His whole foundation shifted. All the speeches, the curated persona of self-made grit, none of it had accounted for the truth beneath it. Asterisk, I wasn't trying to leave you behind, he said, but the words sounded weak even to him. Asterisk, Malik laughed once, bitter. You didn't even know I was there to leave. Asterisk, the city buzzed below, indifferent. Jaden stood in silence, stripped of pretense. The power that once wrapped around him like armor now peeled away. Malik had no suit, no platform, no spotlight. But tonight, he had something else. The truth, his voice, the story no one else had known but him. Asterisk, he didn't wait for an apology. He didn't need one. Asterisk, he turned to leave, the wind catching his jacket, his silhouette sharp against the light of Jaden's empire. Asterisk, and this time, Malik didn't walk away invisible. Asterisk, the check sat on the table between them, crisp, folded neatly, inside a blank envelope. Jaden leaned back, trying to hide the uncertainty behind his polished expression, but Malik didn't reach for it. He didn't even glance at the number. The silence stretched, thick with all the things money couldn't fix. Asterisk, I don't want your check, Malik said quietly. Asterisk, Jaden frowned. It's not a handout. I'm trying to make it right. Asterisk, Malik looked at him, calm and unflinching. You can't buy your way out of this. What I needed back then wasn't money. It was to be seen, to be remembered. What I still need now, he tapped the table once, his fingers strong, steady, is a real partner. Not pity, not press. Someone who believes in what I'm building, on my terms. Asterisk, Jaden didn't argue. He nodded, slowly, as the truth settled into him. For the first time, he was hearing not just the words, but the weight behind them. He left without another offer that day. Asterisk, weeks passed. Malik kept working, nights at the table, mornings at the warehouse job. He sketched during breaks, took meetings, in borrowed conference rooms, stitched prototypes with his own hands. He didn't wait to be rescued. He built anyway. Asterisk, then, one afternoon, Jaden returned. No suit this time, no assistant. Just a folder in his hands and a steady look in his eyes. He laid the proposal down on Malik's table. A real one this time. Equal partnership, full creative control, startup capital from Jaden's personal fund, not corporate, no hidden clauses, No branding takeover. Asterisk, I read everything you sent me, Jaden said, and I listened this time. You don't need me to lead. You just need someone who believes you already know how. Asterisk. Malik didn't smile, not yet. He opened the folder, flipped through the terms, then slid it back. Asterisk. I've got one condition. Jaden raised an eyebrow. The company's called. No more bare feet. That's not negotiable. This isn't about charity. It's about legacy. Asterisk. Jaden hesitated, then nodded. No more bare feet, he repeated. Asterisk. They signed the papers on a grey afternoon at the community centre Malik had once walked past every day as a kid. And months later, the first No More Bare Feet studio opened its doors on the corner of the very block Malik had once limped home on, soles raw from broken concrete. It wasn't flashy, reclaimed wood floors, soft lighting, shelves lined with custom designs. But it was real. His asterisk, Malik hired teens from the neighborhood, kids with talent in their hands and chaos at their heels. He taught them how to cut, sew, sketch, shape. He told them stories about resilience, about how art can be armor. Jaden didn't hover. He showed up when asked, stayed in the background, learned how to listen without trying to fix. Asterisk. Malik stood in the front window. One evening, watching the sun dip below the rooftops, the studio warm behind him, the buzz of machines and laughter spilling into the street. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving, he was building something bigger than himself, something that would outlast the pain. Asterisk. He hadn't forgotten the rain, the hospital, the pawn shop. But now, those memories were seeds, and what grew from them, pride, purpose, power, was his alone. Asterisk. And no one would walk barefoot again. Not on his watch. Asterisk. The bell above the door jingled softly as a young boy stepped into the studio. Barefoot, his heels thick with city grime, toes curled slightly against the cool floor. His mother followed close behind, worry etched into the lines around her eyes. Malik looked up from the workbench, his hands still dusted with chalk and leather scraps, and smiled gently. He saw it all in a glance. The pride the boy tried to hold, the quiet shame the mother tried to hide. Asterisk. He knelt without a word, bringing out a soft tape measure and a warm tone in his voice. Let me see those feet, champ. The boy nodded, cautious, but sat. Malik worked carefully, hands steady, every motion practiced. Behind him, rows of sneakers lined the wall, each pair designed with intention, with purpose. Each pair meant for someone like this. Asterisk. The mother shook her head. Before he could finish, I appreciate it, truly. But I can't. Asterisk. Malik raised a hand, silencing her gently. He turned to the boy and said with quiet conviction, every great journey starts with the right shoes. Asterisk. Then he stood, walked to the shelf, and picked out a pair, sleek, sturdy, vibrant. Shoes made to be run in, climbed in, lived in. He handed them to the boy, who stared like he'd just been handed wings. The mother's eyes brimmed, lips pressed tight, too proud to cry. Asterisk. Outside the studio window, Jaden stood on the sidewalk, watching. He didn't come in. He didn't interrupt. His hands were tucked in his pockets, and his expression held no ego now, only humility and something like reverence. He saw Malik for who he truly was, not just the man who had once saved him, but the man who now saved others. Asterisk. Malik looked up, saw him through the glass. For a second, their eyes met. No anger, no shame, just a quiet nod, not of forgiveness, but of peace. Asterisk. And then Malik turned back to the boy, lacing up the sneakers. With care, the echo of his own barefoot past fading softly into legacy. Asterisk.